Welcome to the presentation of SQL Diagnostic Manager version 11 new features. In this release, we heavily emphasize support for Azure monitoring. We're not new to Azure with SQL Diagnostic Manager. We've actually had support for some time, but we really wanted to make this release very focused on providing complete support of Azure. So now we do support managed instance monitoring, elastic pool monitoring, and single database monitoring with a variety of new alerts that have been provided, a variety of various metrics that are categorized as database as a service monitoring, for example, and the ability to create Azure profiles to pull in any metrics above and beyond what we provided out of the box. So let's look at SQL Diagnostic Manager version 11. We can select an instance from the list and immediately go to the dashboard view to see various metrics that DBAs typically like to look at right away to see if there's any performance bottlenecks. Such metrics as memory performance, Azure disk performance, physical I/O on SQL Server, page life expectancy, session activity, and even the activity down to the database level. There are also navigation options to drill into very specific data up here at the top for sessions, queries, resource utilization statistics, database activity, and now we also have prescriptive analytics enhancements to include 239 recommendations around your Azure environment as well. If we go to the sessions view, we're able to see a summary of the session performance, including response time, the number of active idle or system sessions, the max session percentage down to database level, lock session activity, and lock statistic requests. If we click on the details section, we're able to drill into actual session activity on the instance. And if you select a session from the list, it'll display the details of the user, database application, the last command executed, the login time, and the last activity date and time stamp as well. There's also dedicated views of lock statistics when we choose the lock section, and even blocking and deadlocking. Moving right along, we have the query monitoring view. Just like in the on-premise monitoring of Diagnostic Manager, we can go in and analyze worst performing queries over a given date range and time period if you choose to monitor and collect that information. There's a dedicated resources view as well, with a summary view of overall CPU, memory, physical I/O, call rates, and cache hit ratios. But you can also drill into very specific CPU, memory, and disk performance metrics. So if I click on CPU, for example, here at the top, now we're able to see the compilations versus recompilations, the batches and transactions happening. And also we're able to tie that CPU utilization down to particular databases as well. There's a dedicated view of memory performance as well. Just like the on-premise monitoring, we have the SQL used versus SQL allocated and total usage, as well as the working set memory, buffer cache, database average memory usage percent, as you can see at the bottom, paging, cache hit ratios, and page life expectancy, some of the common memory-related metrics that we like to see. There's a dedicated view of disk activity as well. So we can monitor the checkpoint writes, lazy, writer writes, read-ahead reads, page reads, and page writes going on, and actually look at average data I/O percentage down to the database level as well. And there's a dedicated view of server weights as well. There's also a dedicated view of the database breakdown as far as how much space is consumed across databases. You can actually do a multi-select of databases here to do comparison of databases down at the bottom to see which are your biggest databases and if there's any unused space within those databases. And you can also hit the little drop-down arrow to look at transaction log sizes as well. On the right-hand side, you can see a display of the active sessions and transactions per second, data size in megabytes, log size megabytes, or log flushes across any of these databases that you've selected. There's also a little configuration view for the databases, which you can also export out to Excel if you want. Last, you have the Analyze section, which basically is your prescriptive analytics section of the tool, which will give you a report that displays everything that it discovered as a potential issue in your environment. And with the findings, it will also provide recommendations and sometimes even fix-it scripts to fix the issues. Now, with all of this, if there's anything else that you want to include with your monitoring, we can go to the administration section. We can select the custom counters section, and this is where we can have those profiles come into play to add any custom counters. First of all, to add any profiles, we can either do that when we add an instance, or we can also go up here to the top to the little tools menus up here at the top with the little wrench icon and go down to Azure Profile Configuration. Either way, you can do it when you add an instance or do it separate. When you go into add a profile, click the new button, provide a profile name and description with a subscription ID. Down below the subscription ID, if you need to add that detail, you just click new and plug in the subscription ID and description. You can also add your Azure application details down at the very bottom. Click new, and this is where you will plug in the friendly name, the tenant ID, the client ID, the secret key, and then the description. Once you've created those profiles, then you can go into custom counters and click to add a custom counter. Choose Azure Server System Counter, click Next, and then we simply choose the instance, choose the profile we've created, click the drop down for resource type, and as you can see, these are all the Azure provided resources that we can query and pull data into our own custom counter to do additional monitoring above and beyond what we provided out of the box. So as you can see, you can really mold the monitoring around your own environmental needs above and beyond what we've provided. And just to show you again, if you add a SQL instance, we go up to the top here to the little drop-down menu where the folder is in the upper right-hand corner. Go to Manage Servers, click to add your instance, choose your authentication, put in your login and password. And right here is where you click to enable Azure Discovery settings. And once again, you could go in and create a profile or choose from the profiles you've created already. So those are the new features of SQL Diagnostic Manager version 11. If you're new to Diagnostic Manager, you can go out to www.idera.com. In the product list, you'll see SQL Diagnostic Manager for SQL Server, and you can immediately download the trial with a 14-day trial and with a 14-day trial license key and up to 15 instances. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to us and we can set up a more formal discussion as well.